The Delano Banton emergency pod is now underway.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
I was in the middle of surgery. I dropped everything and I ran here.
So hold on,
You
you
don't
were
know
you were
this
being
because
operated on, or you were
no,
doing a
I
surgery?
was doing a surgery. People who listen to
Hmm.
this podcast don't know what we do for a living, so I think we could. I think it would be fun if we started adding
Yeah.
false backstory stuff. So I'm a surgeon who will abandon a patient
Yep.
when Delano Banton signs a 10-day contract with the Celtics. I'd like that to be my character
Yeah,
outside
so
of this.
I was finalizing some equations for NASA's newest
Yeah.
space exploration rover, and then I heard Delano Banton got signed to a 10-day, and hit
You
delete
had
on
to drop
6 months
it
of work because I was just like, listen, I'm gonna be busy for a while. You
all.
guys catch up on this.
Why'd you have to delete it? Man. Um, Jason Confused Pod. I'm
Yeah.
Jeremiah Broderick. Matt Mislinski, as always. We are joining you after the Celtics almost a blowout. They almost
Should have
reached
been.
blowout status. 121 to 110 win over the Golden State Warriors. Jaylen Brown had a triple double. Life is good.
Life is pretty good, yeah.
That was my main takeaway from this game. Where do you want to start, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, this was a fun one. Really should have been much more of a blowout. The final score did not reflect the vast majority of that game. The Celtics really started to drop the ball a little bit in that fourth quarter. But the fun part of this game for me, and Steph Curry being out, Jimmy Butler out for the season for them, I kind of chalked this one up as a win. Wasn't expecting our ball movement to look as crisp as it did, especially in that first half. We were finding a lot of like swinging extra passes to find wide open shots. Everybody looked really comfortable. I thought Baylor Shireman with the ball in his hands looked more comfortable than I've seen him. So that first half especially was just a really fun watch. And then, the third quarter was fun. The fourth quarter, not so much. But it was a
First
fun game.
half ball movement was the most fun part of this
I
game.
think the best we've seen this season.
It was interesting going up against this team that we had that kind of ball movement because without Steph Curry out there, without Jimmy Butler, they didn't have two of their better scorers. So it was really all their defenders out there. Like they had Draymond, they had Guy Santos was good in this game. Will Richards is a good defender. That I kind of expected them to junk up a little bit more of the passing lanes. But they seemed a little deflated to start the game and then just found their life in the third and then early in the fourth quarter. I haven't watched that many Warriors games this year, but it
Hmm.
did seem like almost an explanation of some of Steph's struggles this year. Like he's out with runner's knee from just abusive amounts of running around the court. And when your only real offensive weapon is Steph Curry moving off ball and just creating opportunities, then that's a lot to put on one guy. Because that takes a lot more energy than just, running pick and roll. Like, if you have to run off 20 screens to create a shot, he's just sprinting. And without him out there tonight, it seemed like they just did not have the ball creation to even be a sort of respectable eighth seed type NBA
Yeah,
team.
I mean, I'm pretty sure their bench outscored their starters in this game.
Yeah.
That starting lineup just not getting a lot offensively. D'Anthony Melton had a pretty good game. I've always liked him, and I think he's a good fit for what they're doing over there. He's always been a very gritty defender, and he showed some scoring tonight. But for the most part, yeah, that first half, it looked like they could not create a shot. I think that was what was so frustrating about the fourth quarter was 5 minutes into the fourth quarter, they had already scored as much as they did the entire second quarter. So it felt like we did really take our foot off the gas defensively. We saw Luka Garza came in and was minus 10 in 2 minutes.
-9. Give
Minus
him.
9 in 2
Listen, let's
minutes.
be fair. He was only
Yeah.
-9 in 2 minutes.
He did hit a three, which was fun, but yeah, that fourth quarter it seemed like
He hit
really,
a 3 and was still -9.
yeah,
That's crazy.
it was,
So he would have been -12 if he hadn't hit that 3.
yeah.
That's
So
hard
that part
to
was
do.
tough, but yeah, the Warriors that first half, I mean, they were getting decent looks. I thought we were doing a good job contesting, but they were still getting some relatively decent, and it seemed like their strategy going into it was we're just gonna shoot 100 threes if we have to, and by the law of averages, maybe that's how we can win this game. And it was really just that fourth quarter that everything started falling for them. But yeah, I mean, I think Steph Curry has been carrying this, and it's interesting because his entire career he's been one of the most effective off-ball movers in the NBA. So like you always expect Steph Curry to be putting a lot of miles on those legs every game because of how much he's running around either with the ball and doing his dribble moves, getting into his bag, or running around one, two, three screens to get a wide open three. And it seemed like, they have some okay shooters on this team, but it didn't feel like that system could translate to anybody else. Obviously, Steph is unique as a shooter and in creating gravity, but they were running a couple off-ball actions, but it really just seemed like we're looking for any three that we can get, and hopefully we can just take enough of them to win.
I think it's like how that team is built is they need guys who can play defense and then hit an open three when it's given to them. And they have a ton of those guys. Like, there's no shame in being in that player archetype. But when you don't have a guy passing the ball for an open three, then you're just launching up contested threes. And that doesn't always work out. I mean, you can get hot for a quarter here and there, but it's not a winning strategy. About Jaylen Brown's game a little bit more. Because this was a fun one from him. Let me pull up his stat line. What is it? 23 points, 15 rebounds, 13 assists, career high in assists tonight. It seemed like the broadcast didn't really pick up on that, but he was hunting that last assist for the career high in the fourth.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell he was, like, looking for guys, which I don't have any problem with. Career high in assist is one of those, like, more fun stats to chase, and when the game's out of scope, of reach for the other team, totally fine with that. 15 boards, huge on the boards tonight. I think if he doesn't get those rebounds, this is a very different game. Just because Kada and Vooch, they weren't terrible on the boards, but they were kind of struggling to be their normal selves. I think they ended up with 5 and 6 rebounds. So yeah, kind of a different game than we've seen from him. He wasn't like going one-on-one and just beating guys. That's usually the great Jaylen Brown games we've seen, is just him being unstoppable and one-on-one coverage. Here he was really spreading the ball around, getting boards, setting screens. Like, he was doing everything else, and then just kind of walked into 23 points on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's obviously shown a tremendous amount of growth in almost every area of his game this season. But it felt like early on, again, that first half ball movement was just phenomenal all around, and a lot of that was spearheaded by Jaylen Brown. It felt like it also, until that fourth quarter, when I agree, it did look like he was kind of trying to find that final assist to get him that new career high. The first half especially, he was in the first quarter, I think he racked up like 4 rebounds, 5 assists, something like that. The game looked so easy for him tonight. He wasn't pressing, he wasn't like pushing to pad his stats in any way. It was just he made every right decision. I want to say he ended the game with 2 turnovers, which compared to 13 assists, we'll take that all day. Yeah.
That's a fine ratio.
Yeah. So I mean, we've seen Jaylen Brown exceed expectations all year, but this was one of those games that, again, against a pretty inferior opponent, but like they have some defenders at least. Like on the offensive side of the ball, you didn't expect too much from Golden State tonight, but just the ease with which Jaylen Brown was able to get to his spots and then find open guys all around the floor. I think we did a better job than I've seen in other games this season of utilizing like back cuts and off-ball movement so that there were always guys to be found, whether they were shooters at the three-point line or running in for a layup or a dunk. And Jaylen Brown was just reading the floor beautifully tonight.
This game made me think a lot about what the MVP and first team conversation is going to be going down the stretch. Over the All-Star break, we got the news that SGA has an abdominal strain that they're going to reevaluate this week.
Yeah.
Depending on how long that's out, that could hurt his 65-game rule. There's a ton of guys in the league right now that are kind of hovering around that 65 games. So, like, Wemby and Jokic, both if they play out every game from here, will hit it. But if they miss 1 or 2 games, 1 game in Jokic's case, 2 games in Wemby's case, they'll miss that 65-game rule. Yeah. I think we could end up in, like, a situation down the stretch where, like, a week, 2 weeks before the end of the season, it's the MVP race just becomes like Jaylen versus Cade or Jaylen versus Ant, which is going to be really interesting to kind of see how that works, because a lot of MVP voters, my guess is, will suddenly start tuning into Celtics games And it could
Yeah.
be a 1 or 2 game situation down the stretch on some of these awards.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ant-Man, Minnesota is sixth in the West right now. Obviously, it's a pretty competitive West, but right now we do have a better record than them, a better winning percentage. I also think Minnesota, I mean, just the expectations game, we've seen that in some MVP conversations where it's like, oh, well, this team was expected to like be in it, but all of a sudden they're a top two seed, they're a top seed. And so I think Jaylen Brown has a little bit of an edge there. I think him and Cade Cunningham is a conversation that I mean, it also, at some point, we'll get into this later on, but Adam Silver came out with some announcements about there might be some rule changes specifically regarding tanking. And I know I mentioned this before the break, but I think there's got to be a rule change around the 65 game thing.
Yeah.
I think there should be more trust put into the voters' hands on awards because it is just silly to be like, hey, who are the top 10 NBA players this year? If you take out games played, if you we hit the end of the season and Jokic, Wemby, SGA, Giannis, I think is too far gone, but those guys like Luka, if they all play 60-ish games and they're all out of the conversation for any awards, for any first teams, for any All NBA in general, like it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't reflect the reality of the league. So if it comes down to we're in that last week or two of the season and it's, well, the MVP race is suddenly Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham, I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation just because I don't know that we can, unless Detroit really falters, I don't know that we catch them. But this late in the season, I think right now we're 5.5 games behind.
I want to be very clear that I hope that situation doesn't happen
Yeah.
for like 3 reasons. One is just like you never want to root for injuries. I
Yes.
hope everybody's healthy. Two, if all those guys go down for a game or two and Jaylen Brown suddenly becomes like the designated survivor MVP and they
Yeah,
change the
there's,
rule,
you don't want
that's
there
going
to
to
be an
be
asterisk next to that.
that's going to be a little bit of a bummer. But I think the main reason I don't want that to happen is what if we end up in a situation where, 2 games left of the season, it suddenly becomes Jaylen versus Cade for the MVP. In every game, it's like the whole NBA universe is kind of tuning into these games, seeing like who's going to do better over this 2 week sample size. And that's also the 2 weeks that Tatum's ramping back up. Like, that's
Yeah.
just going to be a whole nother level of like, how do you kind of manage his return? Well, not like dipping Jalen's usage and kind of how like needing them to work together really fast. Because if Jalen's kind of locked into a All NBA team and Tatum comes back for 2 weeks, I think it's going to be real easy to be like, okay, as we're ramping down, Jaylen can play a few less minutes to get ready for the playoffs. Tatum can kind of slowly ramp back up. But I'd be a little worried about kind of that outside pressure coming in if we wound up in that situation.
Yeah, and I will say I do think Jaylen Brown has long since felt disrespected by a lot of the league, felt like he hasn't been being seen for the player that he knows he could be, that he's showing us this season that he can be. I don't think like that would be a tougher situation where I think like by all indications, I think he's excited for Jason Tatum to come back. I think he's looking forward to like that combination winning games together again, especially in the playoffs. But I do think if it's the last 2 weeks of the season and the conversation around the league is like Jaylen versus X for MVP, like I don't think Jaylen is. I think he wants that statement. I think he wants that accolade a little bit, and I don't blame him for that, given kind of he's been labeled a second fiddle
And
for
listen,
a lot of his
if
career.
Jaylen
Yeah,
Brown ever wins the MVP award, we will actually do an emergency podcast, and I will actually be incredibly excited about it. Like,
yeah,
that will be something I will root for and cheer for no matter what. But just, I think it would be a little unfair to suddenly start basing MVP off the last week or two,
yeah.
or if only a
Because
couple.
6 guys got disqualified.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another problem with the 65 game rule, is it makes kind of talking about these things a lot harder throughout the season, because there's a lot of guys that if you look up like mock all NBA teams right now, and we're getting into the time of year where they start coming out, is a lot of those guys probably aren't going to be there
Yeah, because they're going to
when it
miss
gets down
4
to it.
games the rest of the season due to whatever. And
And also, what if, it also puts guys like Jokic and Wemby into positions where all NBA team matters in their contracts. It can mean
yes,
tens of millions
financially.
of dollars for them. So it's an incentive for them to play through minor injuries right before the playoffs. And if one of those guys goes down right before the playoffs because they're trying to hit this 65 game rule, and they would have played 64 games and been healthy, then that's another thing the NBA's got to look at. And I think the rules got to change at some point, like you said, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's going to make this year's interesting.
Yeah, I
Next
think
guy that yeah.
just real quick, I think one thing that, and again, we'll get to it later in this podcast, I think the NBA just has a tendency to overcorrect to like single season or 2 season issue. Like something is a really big issue for 2 seasons. Like load management was all everybody talked about for a couple years around like Kawhi Leonard specifically and around that. And they overcorrected, and now it's like, all right, we're gonna have to walk this back. When we look at what we're gonna discuss how they want to address tanking. I think a lot of the things that have been proposed are overcorrections that they'll have to walk back eventually. And so it's frustrating to see the NBA be so reactive to issues that like could probably be solved given 2, 3, 4 years with like marginal stuff around the edges rather than, affecting these guys financially for 4 or 5 years. A lot of them like negotiating their next contract, what they're eligible for, and all of that stuff. And as well as just, again, what you mentioned about injuries going into the playoffs, I think is huge. How much are you willing to hurt your own product to make sure that, some of your marquee guys play 65 games and then are out for the playoffs? So yeah, I think that's a very astute point.
Yeah. Were you at all surprised Ron Harper Jr. played in this game?
No, and I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. Played great.
Yeah, no.
Great defense, hit 2 threes. No issue with his play. And I wasn't terribly surprised either. But following signing John Tonje and Delano Banton to the 10 days, kind of choosing John over Ron a little bit for that like 10-day spot that's going to get waived. Not that it's like an end-all be-all. The Celtics signed 2 10-day guys, probably going to waive them before the end of those 10 days just to save like a few thousand and stay under the salary cap. But those 10 days, like, they're kind of a pat on the back. You get an extra like 15,000 and are technically on the full-time roster before you go back to your two-way. So it did seem like a vote of confidence in John Tonje. So I thought possibly that like 10th man spot he could get some minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting him or Banton to get any run. I don't know that they'll see the floor in those 10-day contracts. I think with Ron Harper, I'm more viewing it as the Celtics, in order to manage the season financially, to stay under the luxury tax for the season, we're going to have to sign a bunch of 10 days to get us to, I want to say like mid or late March. And then we can sign some guys for the rest of the season without going back over the cap. If I'm Ron Harper, I don't pay any attention to that because I know like...
I think he'll be on the playoff rotation. Yeah.
I think he'll be in the playoff rotation. I think he's getting a guaranteed contract once mid to late March comes around.
Yeah, I don't believe we have to sign multiple.
Well, we have to keep 14 guys on the roster.
We have to have 14 guys on the roster, but there's a period of time where you can't. Like there's like a 3-week period where if you have 14 guys, you can dip below that, but then the clock starts running again. So I believe we have these two, and then mid-March we need to finalize the roster. So I don't think it's going to be like sign 10 days, then 10 days later re-sign them or sign 2 different ones.
I know that we had a 2-week grace period after the trade deadline. I didn't know if it reset or not every time we dipped back under 14.
I believe there's a grace period after you dip back under. Either way, I don't think it'll matter too much to the actual basketball being played. I do think it's a little bit of a... Because I think Delano Banton's a guy they've liked having around in the system. The way Brad described what they were looking for at the media availability was that they wanted another ball handler, but also a ball handler who could accept that he wasn't going to be playing that much.
Yeah.
And that's Delano Banton right there. That's
why you left surgery.
That's his summary statement on his resume, was a competent ball handler who doesn't mind not playing too much. But he's had some good moments for the Celtics. Like, They've played him in the past. He's a good, like, 13th guy on the roster who can, step into some big games and confidently defend and, run some pick and roll for you. 6'8" point guard. And then John Tonje is a guy I've heard they're pretty excited about as, like, a throw-in two-way guy from the Chris Boucher trade. 5-year guy in college, got drafted by the Jazz this year. Played 2 games for the main Celtic, averaging 25 between the two. So I think those are both guys I could even see squeezing their way onto next year's roster if there's like a consolidation trade of some type. And it does seem like Brad likes to keep those kind of guys around just as like if we end up doing a 3-for-1 trade over the offseason, then we have guys who can kind of move up into those spots if we end up in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to March when Ron Harper signs a guaranteed contract. I was excited to see him play tonight. I thought he played really well. I think he played with confidence. Some of his threes didn't go, but he looked sure of himself stepping into them. I thought all 3 of our young guys, if you want to throw Baylor Shireman in there as well, then 4, did well tonight. The plus minus, Jordan Walsh only played 7 minutes. He was a -9, got dragged down a little bit by that run that Golden State made in the fourth quarter. But I thought Walsh, Harper, and Gonzalez all played solid in limited minutes. None of them got more than 12 minutes. All of them rebounded while they were in the game, which I thought was big. All of them scored between, I think, 5, 6, and 7 points, respectively. And then Baylor Shireman got twice as many minutes. He played 24, got 7, 5, 1. Didn't hit quite as many of his shots, but yeah, I thought all 4 of those guys looked pretty comfortable. And again, playing not the fiercest competition in the world with Golden State, but it was just good to see. It was good to see them all get some minutes at least. I'm glad none of them got, DNP CDs.
It is kind of a shame that we didn't get the garbage time fourth quarter that it looked like we were going to have.
Yeah.
Because I think Joe wanted to have, give the young guys some run out there, get, a Ron Harper, Ugo, Jordan Walsh, Baylor, Garza, just, kind of see what they can do, give them a little bit more freedom with the ball in their hands. And it just kind of collapsed so quickly, even before you could get the full garbage time. They were kind of in a half garbage time lineup, because Pritchard was still out there when it started to collapse. Let me just ask you this. Is there a play in basketball right now that gets you more hyped than a funky Ugo Gonzalez drive to the rim with 6 different changes of motion?
No, and I'm glad you brought it up. There was one in this game.
There was one in this game.
Yeah, he caught it at the 3-point line, drove in, and was just kind of wiggling between 3 defenders in the paint. Yeah, and then got I think it was a reverse layup. Just looked gorgeous. He looked confident. Shout out to our now 20-year-old Ugo Gonzalez. It's just fun to watch. And you get so optimistic. There were a couple plays this game. I realized how much this season I've become attached to Jordan Walsh, because there was one play, he did a backdoor cut. I think it was Vucevic threw him the pass, and Vucevic just put a little bit too much mustard on it, and it slipped through Walsh's hands. But I was like, oh, that would have been an easy our 5-man passing to a cutting Jordan Walsh, who was open and would have had a dunk if there had been a little bit less oomph on that pass. And the way my heart dropped when I was like, oh, Jordan Walsh is going to have 2 less points in this game. I was like, I'm really in it now. I think our young guys are so much fun. For me, the best part of this season, obviously Jaylen Brown has been so much fun to watch, but for me, it's Ugo, it's Jordan Walsh. It's, Ron Harper is kind of coming on quickly as one of my new favorite guys. And so it was really fun to see them all get some playing time. It is really disappointing. I guess that's what happens when you put Luka Garza in for 2 minutes and go -9, is you don't get to see the rest of those guys for that quarter. But hopefully, we have on paper some tougher games coming up. We play the Lakers on Sunday, and then we have a back-to-back with Phoenix and Denver. So I don't know how much garbage time we're going to be seeing. Hopefully we can just curb stomp one of those teams, 2 of them, maybe 3. Yeah. I'm hoping that we get to see all those guys playing more and playing in some lineups together a little bit over the next few games as well.
Yeah, it's one of the takeaways I had from the few games leading into the All-Star break is that Joe seems to pull Ugo for driving a lot, where it's one of the habits he has where he gets to the rim And if it's a miss or a turnover because he's kind of doing all of this funky stuff, because a miss at the rim is usually a lot more damaging to a defense than a miss from mid range or a floater. Just because if you run to the rim, you're usually running past it, and then they're 5-on-4 on the other side. So that seems like something that Joe just does not put up with this season. Is the out of control drives to the rim.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would like to see more out of control drives to the rim from Ugo.
I'm glad we're on the same page
It might
on this.
not
I
be the
agree.
best basketball strategy if you look at the numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
it is one of the more fun plays that we've seen from them. Anything left on this game? Those are kind of my big takeaways.
I think just Peyton Pritchard, again, scoring 26 with 6 rebounds, 7 assists. He's just better coming off the bench. Like, just statistically, he's so comfortable. Again, not that it's what he did last year and in the past couple seasons and what he showed this year. It's not that he doesn't deserve a starting spot. For the team, like, it goes way better when Peyton Pritchard is coming off the bench. He becomes like a human flamethrower more consistently than when he's starting. I think his assist numbers go up when he's coming off the bench. He just seems more confident. I think he's going against kind of more like bench defenders on the other team, and he's just able to get to his spots a little bit more. And it does seem a little bit like Jaylen Brown was able to get 13 assists tonight. Peyton Pritchard was able to get 7 assists tonight. They still were on the floor together, like
Yeah.
that fourth quarter for stretches in that first half as well. Like, it's not that they never shared the floor, but they didn't share the floor as much as they do when both of them and Derek White are in the starting lineup. And it's like, yeah, when there's not a Peyton Pritchard out there with Jaylen in the starting lineup, Jaylen gets the ball a little bit more in his hands and is able to create for others a little bit more. And when Peyton Pritchard's out there and Jaylen's not on the floor, Peyton Pritchard gets to do whatever he wants with the ball. And so there is some of that I know we talked about with Anthony Simons, of just like having those multiple ball handlers and how that doesn't let each of them hit their max potential. It's just this whole season I've kind of been like, I feel bad saying it, but Peyton Pritchard off the bench just has always felt like the better basketball move. And so this game again, just, yeah.
His chemistry with Vooch is also getting scary for other teams, I think. Tonight, a lot of those points came from threes. He was 6 of 11 from three. And a lot of those were just wide open because of the amount of space he was getting. They kept mentioning on the broadcast that Vooch leads the league in points off pick and roll rolling, where if he rolls or if he steps out to the three, he's a guy you just need to respect in both those areas. And it's really easy to turn a pick and roll possession with Pritchard and Vooch into a 2-on-1 scenario where a guy has to make the difficult decision of, do I want a Vucevic layup or do I want an open Peyton Pritchard 3? And that can be a really hard question for a defense if they don't want to bring another man over and just leave a shooter open.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I had on this game.
Nice. So, we've been off for a week. It's been All-Star Weekend. Not a lot of games. Still a lot of storylines around the All-Star game, All-Star events. A lot of media availabilities, so guys can say things. I thought it would be a good way to kind of recap the week for us to do a draft. We can go back and forth and kind of draft what we think are the most interesting topics from the last week of Celtics or NBA in general.
Okay.
You want to go first or second?
I want to go first.
Okay.
There's something, this is something close to my heart, because I have had not as positive feelings as a lot of other people about this individual for a long time. Probably since, I want to say maybe July 4th, 2016 or 2017.
The KD files.
The KD files. Let's talk about KD, who I have not enjoyed since he decided to join the Warriors for basketball reasons for a while, and then it seems like he's kind of a little bit of a dick, especially on social media. And then we found out over All-Star Weekend, hypothetically, I don't know if he's confirmed it or if anybody in his circle has confirmed it, a new Twitter account was found. Most likely, or it seems like the kind of consensus is that it is a new burner of our good friend Kevin Durant's, where he has used it to talk shit about every single player and team he has ever played for. And so I'm one of the storylines I was excited about was like what happens next because it's tough to see the Rockets who Kevin Durant just scored 35 and helped them beat the Hornets tonight. So maybe this all comes to nothing, but shit talking Sengun, shit talking Jabari, just really not went out of his way, it seemed like, to take shots at past teams, especially Devin Booker and Frank Vogel, who he called Hitler and Stalin, I want to say, or Mussolini and Stalin. Yeah, just the KD files. Let's talk about it.
Now, my favorite nugget from his burner, the nickname for Russell Westbrook as triple double cocaine bear.
Yeah, yes.
Have we ever had a guy in the league for over 10 years and then just found the right nickname for him? Because I think that one,
now.
I think that one might stick for
Yeah.
Russ. I think people might start calling him triple double cocaine bear. And the fact that he's been in the league this long, won MVPs, and not really had a nickname stick until the KD files came out,
Yep.
kind of great. But no, I mean, overall, from a basketball standpoint, this is disappointing. Like, KD's in a really good position right now with the Rockets. He's got some young guys who are really blossoming around him. And for the longest time, I've kind of been a KD defender. Like, his thing was always like, I'm not LeBron, I'm not Jordan, I'm not going to drive the bus. I'm just going to be the best guy riding the bus. Like, I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to score efficiently, I'm going to play defense. I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. And, you know, if you're savage,
yeah.
it makes it tough to just say, like, hey, I'm a guy on the bus. And it's really disappointing. Like, I remember at the beginning of this season, there were stories about how Jabari Smith Jr. used to would work out with him in the summers. And he was, like, kind of a mentor to him before joining the team. And it seems like
and then KD in the KD files.
In the KD files. Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever worked with somebody who's just like grumpy all the time? Like they're probably a nice person, but once they're in like a work setting with them and they have to be around you 8 hours a day, they're just kind of like
yeah. I've worked with a lot of people who are like, it's not that serious. Like, let's have some fun with it. Let's not. But they bring the vibe down for everybody else. Everybody else starts tiptoeing. Jabari, who looked at this guy as a mentor in the KD files, is using more colorful, offensive language. KD questions whether he's like mentally all there. So yeah, I think, and again, like how many guys around the league that he no longer plays with, but like that are still, whether it's Russell Westbrook, whether it's, I know James Harden was mentioned. I know like a lot of players just wake up one day and find out, oh, Kevin Durant has been talking shit about me, and I thought we were kind of, you know, he talked shit about guys that he represented.
Ben Simmons woke up and found out that KD misses him. So
yeah,
that's gotta feel kind of nice.
At least that motherfucker passed me the ball.
Feel a little nice.
Yeah.
No, it is a little disappointing, and like I was saying, it seemed like a really good situation for him. To kind of play out however many years he plans on staying in the league. Like, he's playing well, he seems to be healthy, and, you know, he could play 3-4 more years, and if he's going to do that and stay competitive, he needs to find a team with young guys that are kind of coming into their own at the same time, and it seems like he doesn't want to play with young guys that are coming into their own while he's on the team, and that's going to be a tough kind of balancing act if he stays or goes to a different team before he retires.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had different perspectives on KD over the years. I always felt like, especially with the Golden State years, he was resentful that, like, whether or not he was the best guy on the bus, like, it was Steph's bus, and he never seemed fully okay with that. It felt like he always wanted a little bit more acclaim for what he did there. And then just kind of every team he's gone to has pretty quickly imploded, whether it's, you know, Brooklyn, Phoenix, now Houston, where he talked about their franchise young talent, Alperen Şengün, as I think what he said was like, why does this team care if I turn the ball over when your best player can't like shoot, pass, or defend? Which is like, just, it's a tough thing to come out that you're saying about the guy on your team outside of you who's supposed to be like the next step for this franchise and helping carry you at this stage in your career as well. So yeah, again, I'm curious to see whether there's any kind of more investigation to determine whether this actually is his burner, whether there's any consequences for that if it is. I don't know if Houston would do anything about it, if they're going to try and like keep this story like as off the radar as possible while they deal with it, but Yeah, it was just not a good look for him, and it was one of the more entertaining reads of All-Star Weekend was going through all those messages.
Yeah, at the he had a media availability and was asked about it, and he said, "I'm not addressing Twitter junk," is what he called it, which
Yeah,
wasn't a denial, which kind of suggested that it might have been him.
we all know it.
It's too on brand is the
Yeah.
problem. If this does continue to be an issue and he seems unhappy there, is there a team you think would make sense for him to go to?
Off the top of my head, I think Minnesota.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think that Anthony Edwards would have KD's respect in a sense. I think Anthony Edwards has also shown like a little bit of reverence for the older generation. Has insinuated like I looked up to some of these guys. Has also openly trash talked them. Like I think Kevin Durant, if he gave it to Anthony Edwards the way that he's giving it to his teammates now, I think Anthony Edwards would be able to like bark back at him and back it up.
Well, the problem is, I don't think Katie's giving it to his teammates right now. Like, I don't think
Not
any
to
of
their faces.
Yeah,
No.
that's the thing. I don't think he says these things
Yeah.
in
But I
practice.
wonder if he gets outed, whether there's some kind of like, this is not the first KD burner. This is not the
No.
first time that we found out he's shading his teammates, that he's like throwing shots, whether it's in the media, whether it's public, whether it's private. So yeah, I think Minnesota's also a good basketball fit.
They have the right contracts to do it. You could do like a Julius Randle in a pick or something.
Yeah.
I think the question would just be, does KD want to go live in Minnesota for the next however many years?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
It depends, like, what is most important to Kevin Durant at this point in his career? Does he still think that he's going to get a ring? Is that still something that he's prioritizing? Or is it more about lifestyle and just, like, having fun playing basketball? I know that that's something that when he joined the Warriors, and I think for parts of Brooklyn, he talked about, like, yeah, it's just fun to play in this kind of system, like, as a basketball, like, just a hooper who loves the game, loves playing certain styles. So, yeah, I'm curious to see. I don't know, what did you have on as your first pick
I'll
for
take my next pick.
storylines?
Just the tanking discourse is what I'm going to take. A little bit of a plug here. I did start a Jaylen Confused Substack where I plan to kind of write things that are a little bit more like long form. If there's something I have thoughts on that I want to go a little bit more in depth than just like a 5-minute discussion on the podcast. So this week I wrote a breakdown of tanking and why I think the only solution for or the best solution for the NBA would be a relegation system.
Mm-hmm. So you hate America.
Because I hate America. No. So normally when relegation comes up, so if you don't know, in like European soccer, in a lot of international sports, they have leagues. You know, you have your A league, your B league, and your C league. And if a team does really poorly, it moves down a league. And if they do really well, they move up a league. It's kind of the basic concept. And whenever this comes up, because it does decentivize tanking, like you have to be good, no games are meaningless. So
Yeah.
even if you're a middling team, a bottom team, you still need to play every game like it matters. So there aren't these like big dead spots at the end of seasons where you look through League Pass and every game is
Somebody's trying to throw that game. And it's at
somebody's
this
trying
point
to
it's
throw it,
not just the
or
end
it's
of the
just
season, it's the middle, like it's starting now. We've had teams doing it
Yeah.
before the All-Star break. They're like, we're throwing in the towel already.
already.
And it's like, okay, that's 30 games of the season that are going to be awful to watch for that team.
So whenever it comes up, the argument is the owners are never going to agree to this because they would risk getting relegated to the G League or the NBA Second League that they would create. And the difference in, streaming dollars and attendance and just kind of prestige is too big a risk for them to vote to do this. I think there's some fixes to that. So, one, you don't need to make it an easy relegation. Every league that has relegation has a different system for it, right? So in some leagues, the bottom 2 teams are automatically relegated. In some, they have a relegation tournament at the end of the year. And I think if you made it a really strict relegation mechanism, so like the bottom NBA team every year plays a 7-game series against the G
The
League
best
champion.
G League team.
The G League champion. And if you lose a 7-game team with an NBA salary and an NBA cap,
Yeah.
You kind of did that to yourself. I'm sorry to tell you. Like, I don't think it would happen very often. I think it would be amazing TV to watch. The other thing I think is in it for the owners is think of this as a replacement for league expansion, right?
Hmm.
Because, like Mark Cuban and a lot of other people have said, the argument for them to vote for league expansion is you get to sell two NBA franchises. Estimated they'd be like a $5 billion a piece. So each NBA owner would get a $250 million check for league
Yeah.
expansion. But then the TV streaming rights are going to be split 32 ways instead of 30 ways.
Yeah.
So you're basically paying that $250 million back to the owners you got it from over the next 10 years. Like, that's how much you're losing in streaming rights. And you can probably just get a loan for $250 million with better contracts than that. So if instead of that, every NBA team right now owns their G League affiliate, if we said tomorrow that in 10 years, the G League is going to transition into being the NBA second league, and there's going to be relegation between the two, the value price on those franchises would skyrocket because you could sell yourself on, I can buy this G League team, move it to whatever city I want, build a fan base, and then move up a league, possibly, and have an NBA team worth $5 to $10 billion at that point. So I think you could easily sell those for $300 to $500 million. So you'd get a bigger payout now, and you wouldn't have to split the NBA streaming rights going forward. So it'd actually be a payment instead of a loan. And I think between the two, there is a way to convince NBA owners that a relegation system in some form would be in their benefit. So that's my argument. Do you have any thoughts on that or other solutions to the tanking problem?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that because relegation is something that I think it would just be so difficult to integrate. I think the point about right now G League franchises are connected to those teams. So like if the Maine Celtics are the G League champions and then they play the Indiana Pacers in a relegation tournament game, whatever it looks like, 7 game series, whatever it may be, and that gets promoted to a team. Like, cool, Maine now has an NBA team who it feels like most of those fans are really like Celtics fans.
You would,
I think it's tough to develop an independent fan base, and then those teams can't be connected because they're competing
yeah.
against each other.
Yeah, you
So
wouldn't
it's
be connecting the teams anymore. That you couldn't
yeah,
have two-way contracts in this world, which
yeah,
they only started doing two-way contracts, I think, 7 years ago.
yeah. It's pretty recent.
The other thing is you do need to give time before the relegation. Like, you can't say next year.
Yeah,
Because
it
there
would have
needs
to
to be
be
fan
five,
base.
10 years out. Yeah,
And you do need to give permission to whoever buys these teams to be able to move them to new cities. So Portland probably doesn't have the fan base to support one of these teams. If somebody's going to move a team to Seattle, somebody's going to move a team to Vegas,
let's do
somebody
St. Louis.
St.
Let's
Louis,
yeah,
Vancouver, Mexico City
yeah,
needs a team at some point because Mexico City is bigger than New York. It's the largest city in North America, and it's a growing basketball fan base. There's going to be more international. I could totally see another one in Canada, possibly some in South America. You could determine if Europe's too far to move one to, but there's plenty of cities bigger than Portland, Maine, is my only point. And
yeah.
you could build a fan base there, and that's also
Worcester,
part of,
Massachusetts, for one.
probably not Worcester. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Oh, that
Um,
that sucks.
But in soccer, in Europe, that's part of the fun of relegation, right? Like, can
Yeah,
you imagine if they gave Worcester, Massachusetts a team and it beat the Knicks in a 7-game series to knock them out of the NBA? Like, can you imagine the excitement you would have if that happened? Like, because you get those, like,
I would
David
be
and
at every one
Goliath.
of those games.
You
Yeah,
would get David and Goliath stories. And even if, like, they got into that 7-game series and you knew there was a chance, you'd be at every one of those games.
yeah, 100%. I think my other question is, I don't know, and this is At this point, we're getting into like, this is hypothetically happening. How does it
This
work?
this is why I
Like,
wrote the Substack, was I wanted to be able to like write out like how this affects the draft, how this would affect contracts, and
yeah.
kind of that thing.
I'm just
Because I
kind
knew
of
we
a
wouldn't have time on
is it a
here.
one season kind of a thing of like, yeah, you're last in the league this year, so you're playing for your life, or would it have to be? Because I'm thinking about like the Indiana Pacers, who through no fault of their own are going to have one of the worst records in the league this year because their player who just led them to an NBA Finals had an Achilles injury, and so it's like they're
But they're
being last
also,
in the league is not because they're trying to be god awful.
I
Um,
disagree. I
yeah,
think
so
they're going to be last in the league because they're holding Vooch out, because they've sat Pascal Siakam for a game, because they've limited Pascal Siakam's minutes in games. Like, just being the second last in the league isn't that hard. Like, if they just kind of played those two guys and
yeah.
then went out and signed veterans. Because another problem I've had with these tanking teams is there are guys in this league that are better than, that are veterans, that are just kind of out there not getting contracts because there's only like 17 teams that are trying to get veterans in the door to win games. Like Delano Banton could help the Indiana Pacers win games right now. Like they don't have a ball handler for whole quarters out there. And just getting a guy like that in the door. So it incentivized them to actually go out and pick up vets. Like Chris Paul could help them. And then Chris Paul would have a contract. Like we kind of run these vets out of the league at a certain point just because teams aren't trying to compete.
Yeah.
So I think there's a ton the Indiana Pacers could do to produce better basketball games. And right now the incentives are set up for them to produce worse basketball games. And in a
Yeah.
business this large, it's just insane to me that we're purposely putting out worse products.
All right, you're a little bit selling me on relegation.
Thank
I
you.
think it would also just be fun to see more fan bases pop up. I think there are so many teams. You think about New Orleans has been mentioned for over a decade in terms of like they just struggle to get fans in the door. Their franchise, it doesn't seem, I don't even know if you can call, we used to kind of make fun of them as like a poorly run franchise, but it's like they drafted Anthony Davis when they should have. They drafted Zion Williamson when they should have. And like some of these guys just didn't work out. They had the Twin Towers with Boogie and Anthony Davis for a while, and then Boogie got hurt. And but that's just a franchise. I think of them. I think of, Charlotte as just like every year, the Kings, like you just there's no faith that they're gonna, oh god, I forgot about the Washington Wizards. Like these franchises that are like, I don't understand how they can be this bad where they're in that top five for lottery picks like almost every year, it feels like. And I think it would be fun to be like, all right, let's see like what kind of fan base St. Louis can build, and like let's knock New Orleans out of the NBA for a year, 2 years, 5 years. Like let's see new. I think it could be fun. I think it would be wild to be. I think it would also grow the G League, which right now, like, there aren't that many people watching G League games, but if your team had a chance to make it to the NBA, I think there would be a lot more interest in that kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
I
have
mean,
questions about the salary of, like, if you get relegated and you have a $200 million payroll playing in the G League, I think that becomes a weird situation if everybody else is playing with, like, $50 million on their books.
yeah, there's things you would have to do, and I wrote kind of a few different options in the article because that is something that European football, soccer has struggled with, where if a team gets relegated, their income collapses because, you're part of a less lucrative streaming deal, you sell less tickets, probably charge less for tickets, merchandise doesn't sell as well. So you could either just say, like, tough luck to the owners, which I think you couldn't do that in the NBA case because
The owners have to vote
the
for it.
owners have to vote for this. So I think the salaries, as they're written right now, they're written as percentages of the cap. So I think you would have to say that the percentage of the cap translates to the G League or NBA Second League cap. And I think to get the player, because the players union would also have to sign off, players would either get an opt-out clause where if their team is relegated, they're able to opt into free agency, or some sort of like forced trade mechanism if they're relegated, that they can force a trade if a team's willing to trade for them. So if you're a guy that would get signed by another NBA team, you can kind of force your way into staying in the league. But if you're an end of the bench guy, it would hurt you because if there isn't another team interested, you'd be in the second league.
That's so fascinating. I'm
Yeah.
imagining like
There'd be a lot of interesting
I'm
storylines
like
if a team got relegated.
yeah, it's like okay, let's say the Bucks have completely fallen apart. Let's say the Bucks get relegated. Giannis unexpectedly early out of nowhere is a free agent this summer. Go. And like I think the league would have much more dramatic offseason storylines that could be a lot of fun
I
there.
also think it would make trades a lot more interesting because
Mhm.
if all the contracts are percentages of the cap, then you could do trades between the leagues, which is what they
Yeah.
do in most leagues where they have relegation. So if a guy starts playing out of his mind in the NBA second league, then another team could call him up and his contract will, 10 times in value, and possibly if they trade a guy down, his contract would minus in value. So it would be also an incentive to players to, even though you've signed this contract, you kind of need to keep playing up to it or play out of it.
That's going to be a tough one to sell to the Players Association. I mean, yeah, I mean there's a
There's
lot
a
of things
bunch of
that
different
you would
ways you
have to
could do it. Yeah.
yeah, but you know what? I started this off being like this guy hates America. I'm starting to believe. I'm like maybe relegation would be fun.
Convince you to hate America too. All right, what's your next topic?
Next topic from the All-Star break, how I want your feelings. My topic is just kind of like I didn't love the three team layout, the three game layout. I kind of missed East versus West. That's my
Yeah,
hot
I
take.
disagree. The first three games were awesome. Two of them ended in buzzer beaters. The guys actually tried this year. Wemby was the man out there.
Wemby was great. Anthony Edwards was great.
I think when they've tried in the past to make each quarter meaningful, it's kind of backfired. That unless there is a stake for the players and like you have to win this 12 minutes, then you end up with these long periods where it's like the third quarter of an All-Star game has never been fun. There has never been a fun third quarter of an All-Star game. And the third game of this four-game thing they did was a blast.
Yeah, I think there's something I miss about.
Go watch the last year's All-Star game and come back to me with this take.
Yeah, I like the East versus West rivalry a little bit. One thing that I've always liked in I want to say it's Major League Baseball. They do the American League versus the National League. The winner of the All Star game, I believe, has home field advantage for the World Series. I think that would be really fun. Like, fuck your record if you get to the finals. Like, how hard did your guys play in the
Yeah,
All Star game? I think there are more
that could be
fun ways that
interesting.
we could incentivize the NBA All Star game. I think it was more that, like,
Did you hear the Nick Wright take on how to fix the All-Star game?
yes, where he was
Instead of
talking to Bill
going,
Simmons.
yeah, instead of going international, you go white guys versus black guys.
Yeah, I thought his argument kind of fell apart when he was like, "I think it would be really close. I think it would everybody would be playing to win because it would be
He was
Austin
putting
Reeves and Con Knipple
yeah,
and Peyton Pritchard." And I was like, "I don't know what we're doing here."
a lot of faith was put into Con Knipple that day.
Yeah.
A lot of faith.
The fate of white America was put on Con Knipple's shoulders, and I'm like, I think we're fine just doing East versus West,
Yeah,
international versus America, whatever.
yeah, I think the person who should be most against doing a racial All-Star game
Yeah.
is Con Knipple. Um,
Chet Holmgren saying if that happens, he would switch sides halfway through. I thought was just what a fucking character.
but yeah, any way to add stakes, I think
Yeah,
is good. Whether it be home court, whether or not it be like a faux race war.
yeah. I think my bigger issue with it was the that we didn't get to see the All-Stars all play with each other, and I think that's one of the things that is fun about the All-Star game of like there were years where it was like and Steph Curry throws it to Dame Lillard who throws it to Carl Anthony Towns and just like in this the teams obviously there were three teams so it was more segmented and it's like oh we never got to see like Jaylen Brown play with X player on the Stars or the whichever team they were on. And I thought like that's a part of the game that I miss, especially knowing that like a lot of these guys are friends off the court. I want to say like I don't know if Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown were on the same team or just like those kinds of things where they find ways to like have fun with each other during the game. I like seeing that kind of dynamic play out on the floor.
I see. I think I disagree again because I liked the smaller teams. I felt like they were actually able to play basketball. Where when you have 15 all stars all on the same team, you kind of have to do like these weird substitution patterns where a guy's playing like 2 minutes and he goes out there and he chucks three threes and then he tries to do a cool dunk and he's out. When you have the smaller teams, you can play like much closer to what an actual like 7-man rotations like, where guys are playing long runs and you can kind of have a flow where like there's the point guard for this team who knows he's going to be running an offense for an NBA game. And people are kind of learning to play off of him and they're like, okay, where do you want your screens? What are we going to do? Like they can kind of talk out a little bit of strategy, which really helped the basketball in this game. And you didn't get to see everybody play with each other, but you did get to see them play against each other. And to me, that was just so much more fun. Where you got to, like, Ant was just going at everybody. So, like, you got to see Ant go at Wemby and Scotty Barnes. And when he was playing the old guys, like going at Durant, Kawhi going off. Like, there was just so many good moments because those guys got the opportunity of being on a smaller roster and kind of playing real basketball.
Yeah. You know what? I will say I didn't hate it. Like I going into this, my take was that I preferred the old style. I think you may be turning me around on that. I will say I think it's still a stretch to say that they were playing defense. That
A
like
couple were. Scotty
couple
Barnes
were
played
for like
defense.
a couple minutes. Yeah.
Scotty
I think
Barnes
that's
played
really
real defense out there.
that's really I think what I was missing was like I remember there were years where like Al Horford on the Celtics was named an All-Star and he just went out during the All-Star game and was like I'm just going to play defense. I might take one shot or something. I want more incentives for defense in the All-Star game. I want to see the best in the world actually try to stop each other. Yeah, I think it was cool that they tried something new. I don't know if we're going to go back to the same format next year or what it's going to look like, but dear NBA, just like keep being inventive with it, keep trying stuff out because I think that the All-Star game is a product that hopefully can continue to improve in terms of like enjoyment to watch.
I thought it could even have been a little bit longer. Like if they did more small teams, like let in the winner of the Rising Stars Challenge. It's like a fourth team and then do a tournament. If you
I think
want
the
to see
fact
more,
that they won't do one-on-ones is crazy.
yeah, they might if ratings keep going. I know Jaylen Brown asked directly, and that was one of the topics I had. But
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome. I don't know who would do it, and I think a lot of guys would get exposed in it. Because one-on-one's a different game than 5-on-5. Like, we
100%.
always heard the stories from Miami Heat practices about how Malik Beasley would just, like, carve up LeBron. Michael Beasley. Malik Beasley was
Malik
on the
Beasley
Heat.
was not carving up LeBron. But
Michael Beasley just carving up LeBron.
yeah, I forget who it was who always beat Kobe in one-on-ones. But there's a story where Kobe was like, I've never lost in a one-on-one. And then someone was like, hey, you lost to me every single day. Yeah.
But the NBA's always had those guys that are, like, super good at one-on-one and not that great at... TJ Warren is another guy who is, like, obscene one-on-one player. And then in 5-on-5, it's just, like, a lot of it's just passing, Like, it's a different sport. So it'd be interesting to see if they did a one-on-one tournament, who the, like, random role player who just goes in and, like, beats Durant and Jaylen Brown to win it would be.
Yeah.
And then you would have like a almost Mac McClung of one-on-one, who's like the one-on-one guy. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Also the dunk contest. What are we doing?
This one,
I think it's your turn for a take.
Okay,
I think it's
I'm
your
gonna
turn
throw
for a
it.
take. Yeah.
Okay, I'm surprised. This is the most me topic I think we've had. Jaylen Brown's MMA career.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about it. So at All-Star break, during his media availability, Jaylen Brown said that he was considering having a career in mixed martial arts or boxing after his NBA career was over. and that he has
Mm-hmm.
spoken to Dana White about this.
Mm-hmm.
First reaction, because how many Celtics is Dana White personally friends with? Because Kristaps Porzingis also had a statement similar to this, and Dana
Yeah.
White was asked about it. He said that he considers Kristaps a personal friend, and that they always have dinner when they're in the same city together, but that he thought Kristaps would need a few amateur fights before going into the UFC, and a lot of guys quit after their first amateur fight. Was his
Mm.
response. Dana White's a big Celtics fan. I know he sits courtside at a lot of games. Is he somehow like incepting these guys into wanting to fight? Is it a Joe Mazzulla thing? Like, how has MMA kind of gotten into the Celtics locker room?
I have no clue. I know that Jaylen Brown has been interested in martial arts for a long time. I know during off seasons he's frequently tried different stuff.
I mean, his grandfather was a boxer. He's
Yeah.
boxed since a young age.
And I forget if it was kung fu or karate, but I know that there was a season, an off season that he spent in China doing that for a few weeks.
He did Muay Thai, I think, last off
That's what it
season.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Dana White, leave us alone. I don't know. Because
I
here's the
wanna
thing,
see
is
it.
like, I want Jaylen Brown to spend
I'm
the
not
rest of his
against
career with the Celtics, and I would
Okay.
like that to last like another 10 years or something like that. At that point, I don't want to see Jaylen Brown get killed by like a heavyweight who's 24 years old when Jalen's 38.
See, this brings me to my next point.
Yeah.
Because MMA is a sport, people start on the older side. At one time, the average age that a UFC fighter started martial arts was 20. A lot of guys in the UFC were like linemen in the NFL and then decide to switch over. Can you guess the oldest debut of a fighter in the UFC? I looked this up for this question.
I feel
Ron
like there's
Van
gotta.
Cleef.
I'm wondering if there's like a gimmick guy, kind of like Mike Tyson was like, I'm 54, I'm gonna come back and fight Jake Paul or something like that.
He wasn't famous.
Okay.
He was just a tough dude.
I'm gonna guess 38.
51.
That's crazy. How many fights did he have in his career?
He had like 3. He wasn't like a
Okay.
long-term fighter. I think the best like comp, if you wanted to talk like very recent UFC and a guy who had a long career, is Renzo Gracie, who started at 38 and then fought into his 50s. So there are guys who have done it.
Yeah.
Like Joe Mazzulla's 37. Like there's still time if
I
Joe
think
Mazzulla.
I would be more okay with Joe Mazzulla joining the MMA than I would with Jaylen Brown. Um,
So he, like, if Jaylen Brown played until he was 35,
yeah.
he could easily still fight in the UFC. My last point. Well, okay, I have 2.
Mm-hmm.
One, Jaylen Brown is 6'6" and currently listed at 223 pounds. Okay, if he fights at heavyweight, he would be going up against some guys who are 6'8", 260. Now, Jaylen Brown's athletic, but I feel like if he's going into a fight, he's going to want to rely on his height to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I
So you
don't
think he
know.
slims down?
That's the thing. If he could get to 205 and fight at light heavyweight,
Yeah.
he'd be going up against like some Peyton Pritchard sized guys. A lot of UFC fighters cut 15 pounds of water weight. How committed is Jaylen Brown to this? And is he willing to do like a dehydration to just like wreck the light heavyweight division?
I could see it, but Jaylen Brown is also he is such an unpredictable character in terms of his off the court interests. Where I could see Jaylen Brown also just being like, yeah, after I'm done with basketball, I'm going to become a cellist in like the New York Symphony Orchestra. Like, there's nothing that Jaylen Brown could say, I've decided to do this after I retire, where I think I would be that surprised. He's like, yeah, I could see him doing that. I could see him really committing to it.
Well, I could also see him taking a year off, possibly doing some TRT, eating 400 grams of protein a day, and just coming back
Getting
as like
up
a
to 260.
jacked
Yeah.
MMA fighter. The last question I had on this:
Mm-hmm.
who wins in a fight, Jaylen Brown or Kristaps Porzingis?
Jaylen Brown. Don't even have to think about it. I think for one thing we've seen this season, like Jaylen Brown is so much stronger than a lot of like 6'11", 250-pound big men. Like he's bullying them in the paint. I also think Kristaps Porzingis, again, will repeat. The motto of Kristaps Porzingis' career is, ow, I fractured my eyelash. I'm out for 40 games.
See,
So
I
I
think
don't think...
there's a big difference in injuries between the two sports
Yeah,
because Kristaps Porzingis' problem is repeated motion injuries because he's playing 82 games a year and his body is not meant to
he
move
has
that
never
much.
played 82 games
He
a
is
year.
trying to play 82 games a year. He is trying his best to play 82 games, and his body is not built for that. If you're a heavyweight in the UFC,
You
fight
fight...
once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And if Kristaps Porzingis, as just an athlete, has to perform once a year, I can believe that. Like, that's a lot more believable to me than Kristaps having, like, a successful NBA career. Is
Yeah,
him
where he has
being
to
able
try
to
and do it every
fight
night.
once a year, where he has a training staff all committed to just having him peak for one night.
Yeah, I think the other thing, I don't know nearly as much about the UFC as you do, in terms of, does a guy who looks like he's made of twigs, like, are his bones more breakable than others if you kick them enough? I think the other thing is you have to remember, I'm like viewing it in NBA terms.
Yep.
Kristaps Porzingis is not particularly good at backing down someone the size of Peyton Pritchard in the post. Like, strength has never been an attribute that I have ever for a second considered giving him.
So, two things. One is that he's listed at like 238. So
Yeah.
he could put on like 20 pounds. He's going to do this. I think part of the reason he's so skinny is because he's trying to avoid injuries. And in basketball, the heavier you are, the more pressure is on your joints. You get injured more often. So that's why basketball players, that and like the cardio,
Yeah.
is just why they try to stay so lean. So he could put on 20 pounds, even if it's just like from eating, you know?
Yeah.
And just be a bigger dude. And he has to rely on his reach. Like, you can't get near him. I think him grappling would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't see him as like a big grappler. I see him as just like I keep you at arm's reach. 'Cause
Yeah,
my
my
arms are
jab
twice
will
as long
reach
as yours.
farther.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't get close to him is kind of his only strategy. And maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen Kristaps Porzingis grapple. I would kind of like to see it
Yeah.
because it would be fun.
You've sold me on wanting to see this fight.
Like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and hopefully... Who do you think is most likely from the 2024 championship Celtics to fight, not even in the UFC, but just a professional MMA fight?
2020.
Including coaching staff. So you got Kristaps, Jaylen Brown.
Any professional, like, fighting tournament.
Mixed martial arts. I'm not going to count boxing.
I'm like, does Joe Mazzulla, if he enters a jiu-jitsu tournament, count? Okay. In that case, I think I do see Kristaps Porzingis, and I hate to say this, it's because I don't think his basketball career is going to be that much longer, and he's going to, like, want to find something else to do, and I think he'll be young enough when he retires that he's... I think you make a fair point of, like, if he's like, I can get in shape for one day a year that I have to actually, like, use it.
It's what Darko Milicic did after his NBA career. Was got into kickboxing.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, what's your next pick?
My next pick, I want to say the dunk contest, there needs to be a committee ahead of time. You need to run your dunks, or at least like the first four that you do, or something like that. Because obviously we all, like, the best dunk contest of all time was Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine the first time. And I want to say 2016. And some of that was improvised. Aaron Gordon has talked about, like, using the Magic's mascot in an improvised way. But when the first round, it's like nobody's gotten eliminated yet. And the first round, they're doing dunks that you can see guys doing in game.
Okay, yeah,
like,
Jackson Hayes should be banned.
Yeah,
Jackson Hayes should be banned from this dunk contest.
It's just, we've seen
or
guys
the NBA
not...
or America. Like, he should be banned from something. Jackson Hayes was really bad.
His local Taco Bell, like, let's just start banning him from stuff.
Local businesses, start banning Jackson Hayes. for terrible dunks.
Yeah,
He's
so
yeah.
my take is there needs to be like a creativity board that dunks, at least in the initial rounds, need to get run through. Because if you're like, I'm one of the four guys in the entire NBA, or apparently we've stopped using NBA guys and are just NBA adjacent guys, that there needs to be like a filtration process where it's like, yeah, if you're gonna jump from a few feet in front of the free throw line and do a one-handed dunk and that's your contribution, don't sign up for this. Like just don't. I think there needs to be an element of creativity that's insinuated back into it. I think the raw athleticism of some of them, like a windmill, a double clutch, all that kind of stuff, is impressive. But like we're seeing some of that in games. I think the dunk contest needs to have an air of like, for lack of a better word, extravagance or like extraordinariness of like, yeah, jump over a mascot and put the ball under, which not everybody can be Aaron Gordon, and I think that is the greatest dunk contest dunk of all time.
I
But
got two takes on
yeah,
this. One, I think they're not going to be able to have Aaron Gordon level athleticism every year. Like that just doesn't exist. Or it does, but those guys just aren't entering for whatever reason. So I think you do need to open it up in a way to like silly dunkers. Like dunkers that are at least entertaining. I know Jay Huff was campaigning to get himself in the dunk contest because
yeah,
he's not the most athletic guy, but he does those like crazy spinning dunks where he kind of twirls.
yeah,
That would have been more fun than Jackson Hayes.
yeah.
And the other take I have is this seems like a very Jackson Hayes take to me. I think if Carter Bryant had landed the dunks he was trying and that he's done before in that last round, this would have been like a B dunk contest. Like him, Jace Richardson, the other guys, they weren't Zach LaVine, but they were good dunkers. Like this would have been a better than average dunk contest if he had been able to land those. And I think even with him missing, this was kind of like the top two guys deserve to be there and were kind of like what you expect from an average year in the NBA dunk contest.
Yeah, I think we just need higher expectations. We need to demand more. If you're like, yeah, listen, this could have been a B tier dunk
It's
contest
the
if the best dunker could dunk.
well,
Like
he
that's
can't dunk. He's 20 years old, and the pressure clearly got to him.
yeah,
But that's what
but
makes it exciting is that sometimes they miss. Having that moment where Carter Bryant knows he can do the dunk that's going to win the contest. 40,000 people there. Vince Carter standing next to him, hyping him up. He's got one chance to land this dunk to win or lose. That's the moment of like emotional stakes that we're tuning in to watch. And if every time, if it's because I've heard some people suggest they should pre-record the dunk contest so
that's
that
crazy.
it's like you know the dunks are going to be good, but you could just go on YouTube for that.
Yeah.
The point of the dunk contest is that it's live, there are stakes, and there's pressure, and you see how these guys react to the pressure. Because there's much better dunkers outside of the NBA than in the NBA.
Yeah,
And
and that's
they've done
kind of
TV
what's
shows.
frustrating about me of like you can watch the NBA dunk contest or you can spend 5 minutes on YouTube and find something vastly more impressive than anything you're going to see in the dunk contest. And that's like as an NBA fan, it's just like it's tough to market of like, yeah, our guys can dunk the ball. Are they going to be the most impressive dunks you see this week if you open your phone and Google dunks? No.
No.
And I think like even I don't know, just the element of creativity again. Like Blake Griffin jumped over a car. Like there,
More
just
props would be cool.
more props. I think just again, it's like these guys for as good as that, and like not taking anything away from them athletically or anything like that. But there are more athletic dunkers who aren't in the NBA. I can find videos of 1,000 more athletic dunks than what these guys did. So where it should be, like the emphasis of the dunk contest shouldn't be just athleticism. I think creativity has to be like an equal part and like find a way to incorporate that into the judging of like, yeah, you did a dunk from the free throw line. Cool. We've now seen that in 10 dunk contests. Like, you don't get points for doing something that isn't original, isn't like I mean, we've seen guys do like throwback dunks, especially guys throwing back to like I know like some guys have done dunks that their dads did in the
Yeah.
NBA dunk contest and that kind of thing, and that's cool. But I think just like if you're like, yeah, I'm gonna
Remember
throw
when
a
John Collins dressed up as Amelia Earhart and dunked over a plane?
yeah, yes. See, that was memorable.
Why?
Yeah, but yeah, my take is I think there needs to be like a creativity score element to the dunk contest to bring like
You
life
make it
back into it.
like figure skating. In figure skating, you have an execution score and a presentation score. So you
Yes.
have like how difficult the tricks were and how well did you execute them. But then you also have points for like who had the best costume. And that's like a real thing in sports that
Yeah.
exists. And dunking is a performative sport. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be as objective as a game. There's going to be stuff with like costumes and props.
Yep.
And I think it's fair enough to give them points for those. Let me give you this is my idea for a fix for the dunk
Hmm.
contest. Put a clause in rookie contracts that if you are in your rookie or second year, the NBA can call you up and say, "Hey, you're doing the dunk contest."
I
VJ
say no.
Edgecombs should have been in this dunk contest.
Yeah, and I know
VJ
he expressed
Edgecomb.
no interest. So here's the thing. I say no, and here's why. I think it should extend through your second contract. I think we should be able to call and be like, Anthony Edwards, you're going to be in the dunk contest.
See, I think it's tough because this does require preparation and training to ask a guy that's carrying a team into the playoffs to take time off of that to also do the dunk contest. So, like, Anthony Edwards is playing 36 to 38 really hard minutes every night and needs to stay healthy. And, like, there's a whole franchise relying on it. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, go think of 4 to 5 dunk and practice them a bunch. VJ Edgecomb could do this. Like, John Morant in his first year could have done this. And a lot of guys I think say, like, oh, I'd love to do that someday once I get set in the league. Like, we saw it with LeBron. He kept saying, like, yeah, someday I'd like to do that. You know, I just want to get my feet wet in the league first. And that's understandable. But I don't know if guys realize how hard the league gets when a full franchise is riding on your shoulders.
Yeah, I just think that star players became afraid of the dunk contest at a certain point, and I would like to see that remedied. Where I don't know if they're just like, I don't want to get embarrassed, I don't want to hurt my brand or whatever, but we keep. It feels like it seems almost like a steady decline in name recognition in the dunk contest, and I think that's a real problem. Of like, yeah, tune in to the AT&T Slam Dunk Contest starring three guys you've never heard of and Jackson Hayes. And I think that's just it's a tough sell, like as a product, especially as the NBA, where again, like there's better dunks to be found outside of the NBA. If people want to see the best dunks in the world, they're not watching the dunk contest. The least you can do, in addition to like telling them to do better dunks, is also give people some names that they recognize. And so when you're like, yeah, we'll take guys in their first or second year, a lot of those guys just still aren't established yet. Even if you like extend it to the end of their rookie contract, like if a guy's been in the league 4 years and he's good enough, we're gonna know who he is regardless. Like we know who VJ Edgecomb is. I would bet like 70% of NBA fans still don't.
The dunk contest would be a way to get them to know VJ Edgecomb. And I think that
Yeah,
would be better for the league, where Jace Richardson and Keyshawn Johnson, no disrespect to those guys, but they're not part of the brand of the NBA that they're building. Like, fans learning their name and then forgetting it 2, 3 years from now because they haven't seen them again. I don't really get that from a marketing point of view, where you want to build up your young stars. So if this was, VJ Edgecomb, Cooper Flagg,
Jordan Walsh.
Jordan Walsh, the stars of the future, it would be really cool. And for a while we had that where, Kobe and Michael and Dominique, when they were really young, did the dunk contest
Yeah.
and then had these huge careers. But the first time they were really on national TV that everybody was watching was Dunk Contest All-Star Weekend, and that's why it was appointment television.
Yeah.
I got one pick left.
Hit me with it.
All right. I'm calling this one the Clippers of it all.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to trip down memory lane. Okay. Last few All-Star games. Last year, it was in San Francisco. It was a love letter to Steph Curry. talked about this was the building Steph Curry built. They did tours of the arena. They talked about the franchise-altering player he was. Got huge rounds of applause. There were tribute videos to Steph Curry. Year before that, it was in Indianapolis. Reggie Miller, master of ceremonies for the whole thing. They did tribute videos to Reggie Miller. Talked about what successes he had in the playoffs in those Knicks series. There was a ton of old footage of him hitting threes. He got big rounds of applause. Year before that, Salt Lake City, Utah. Karl Malone came out and received a trophy. Karl Malone.
Don't support that.
Yeah. It was crazy. But they were like, we're having an all-star weekend here, and he's the best player in franchise history, so we need to do a big thing to celebrate him. Year before that, Cleveland. Huge LeBron love letter. Every year they've done an all-star game in a city, they have done huge tributes to the best player from that franchise. Who's the best Clipper of all time?
Chris Paul.
Yep.
Blake Griffin.
It's
Chris
Paul.
I know it's
Chris Paul.
I like Blake Griffin a lot.
If you had said McAdoo, I would have slapped you.
I would never. No, it's Chris Paul. I would put Blake Griffin.
They didn't mention Chris Paul. They didn't mention the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
They just played it like it was like a store brand all-star game.
Yes.
I counted the first mention where they said the word Clippers in the all-star game was during the all-star game, one of the announcers said, former Clipper Norman Powell for 3. And at the beginning of this season, it was supposed to be Chris Paul's farewell tour.
Yes, which is now didn't happen at all because of how the Clippers
go
fucked
to his
him over.
Halloween party.
Yeah,
you didn't want to go to a guy threw a Halloween party. You didn't want to go. So
in
now
the arena,
all-star
wasn't
game,
it?
It doesn't matter. Could you not play a video?
Yeah,
or have
I also
Blake
think
Griffin
this is
out there. The thing is, Blake Griffin was just criticizing their franchise for 3 weeks leading up to it because of how they treated Chris Paul. So they couldn't bring him out either. JJ Redick and Wesley Johnson? Who are you bringing out at that point?
I mean, Kawhi Leonard was there as an all-star playing in the game, and it was never a thing. I think it's one of the weirdest things. And it's difficult because it feels like such a squandered opportunity for this Clippers team that, is still, has always been trying to not be little brother in Los Angeles, and is trying to develop their own fan base just as passionate as the Lakers, and trying to see if they can kind of peel away this is our city too, and doing all those things. And they have an all-star game in their backyard and don't incorporate themselves or their identity into it at all. And a little bit of it felt and I'm sure I'm reading into this, but it felt embarrassed. They had planned this whole thing. They were gonna do
Yeah, and I think Kawhi is a good example too, because you have the aspiration issue lingering.
They could have
off
planted a tree for Chris Paul right in the middle of the stage.
My God, if they had Kawhi come out and plant a tree, that would have been great. I would have loved that.
Yeah, people would have genuinely laughed.
If they don't mention aspiration. Opening ceremony of the All-Star Game, Kawhi Leonard comes out, plants a tree, walks off, doesn't say anything. Doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
But, they also couldn't be do a Kawhi came here and turned this franchise around narrative.
Yeah.
Because they're still waiting to see kind of what the NBA does with their investigation into the salary cap manipulation around Kawhi. And I know there's been rumors that that's part of why James Harden left was, Kawhi might get suspended for the rest of the year. They might lose a bunch of draft picks. It felt like he was jumping off a sinking ship. And that's not a great place to have the All-Star Game. The Clippers have been around forever. They're in Los Angeles. They have a ton of advantages from that. Having the richest owner in sports and being in Los Angeles. And they've had a bunch of star players choose to go there. But they still have never been able to have their guy. And every All-Star game before this has been about a team saying, this is our guy, and we're proud of that. And it was awkward having a full weekend where they were just what do you mean we were supposed to have a guy?
Yeah. Speaking of which, do you know which NBA team has the most banners in the league in history.
The Boston Celtics.
Yeah, do you know which NBA team has the most jersey numbers retired in the whole league?
The Boston Celtics.
Yeah, you know which team has been like
Yeah, we wouldn't.
consistently one of the best teams in basketball and has guys to advertise and do
Can you?
love letters to? Do you know when the last time a NBA All-Star game was hosted in Boston?
1989.
You are off by 25 years. It was 1964
That's
for
crazy.
the winningest franchise in
Yeah.
league history that has consistently produced one of the like the Celtics outside of like the Paul Pierce years pre Big 3 and like the 90s like the Celtics have done 20 years in a row where like they didn't tank at all. They always had someone exciting, whether it was Isaiah, whether it was the young guys coming up with the Jays. We had Kyrie for 5 minutes. There has always been a guy that we could be marketing in Boston, and they refuse to give us an All-Star game. And then the Clippers go and do this, and it feels very disrespectful. I
Yeah.
know that we're bidding on 2029, which will be great because by then Ugo will be an all-star and we'll be like
It'll be all tribute videos to Ugo at that point.
Ugo, Jaylen, Jason. Derek White will get one at that point.
So I think two things with that. One, if we, like, you're right. Like, if we had an all-star game, do you imagine how hard it would be to keep Paul Pierce off the court?
That's the part I would be least. I would be so upset.
Of the
Yeah.
'08 Celtics would be injecting themselves into every moment of
Yeah.
that game, of that weekend. I mean, we would also have like Larry Bird would be there, Kevin McHale would be there,
Yeah. So here's my
Bob
thing.
Cousy
I
would
think
come through.
let's send Paul Pierce to Ibiza for that weekend.
Let's not tell him.
Like, don't try not to tell him. Take his phone away. Give him like $4 million in ones, and just point him in the direction of a strip club, and just make it about like the new Celtics.
What is the thing? Like, the Celtics would have guys breaking down the door physically to be like, I played here. The
Yeah.
Clippers had a whole weekend where nobody
The one guy
was
who
willing
could
to
say I played here was
Yeah.
getting fired in Toronto.
Yeah, nobody was willing to say that they played for this franchise. I think the real reason we haven't had one is the arena. Just because it's owned by the Bruins, having an all-star game is very expensive for a team, and they recoup that money through like ticket sales and concessions and stuff. And just one of the problems the Celtics have had as a franchise is that they don't own the arena. The Bruins own the arena. So it hasn't been like as profitable. I think it would actually be interesting to see if they look to get their own arena next year. That was something Bill Chisholm mentioned on the Derek White's podcast. One of
Yeah.
the fan questions was, if you had all the money in the world to spend on this team, what would you do? And he didn't directly say it, but he kind of said new arena.
Yeah, can I mention just this is going to be my last point. Someone told me this recently, and it threw me for such a goddamn loop. I was like, my mind was blown for probably a good 30 minutes. I couldn't think about anything else. Where do the Boston Celtics play?
TD Garden.
TD Garden, named after
Ted Durandos. I don't know.
TD Bank,
Oh,
which
I
stands.
didn't know. Wow.
It's TD Bank, which stands for what would you guess TD stands for?
Total domination.
It's close. Toronto Dominion. We play in an arena that has another NBA city in the name. I heard that, and I've been a Celtics fan for, 12, 13 years now, and I hadn't known that my whole life. We gotta change the name, I think, at this point. Let's build a new stadium and just call it, like, the Boston Garden, the Celtic, like, whatever we gotta do.
Yeah, I think the issue is just like, where would you put that arena? And right now, it's so cool that the Celtics have an arena right in the middle of Boston, where you drive in and you see the Zakim Bridge, the gardens right there, and it's kind of just been that iconic spot and location for so many years, where if you built a new arena, I don't know if you'd put it like just outside the city, like, because there just isn't that much space in the middle of Boston.
I would say that would be a better use of the Seaport District than what they're currently doing there, which is just making like a tech finance
They already
hellscape
built that, so
of let's tear it all down and do a fun basketball thing instead, because that place is soulless.
I mean, There's more and more, like, they're trying to build the new NBA stadiums near casinos. So I could see them doing it, like, up by Encore
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. It's been a while since I've spent, like, serious time around Boston, so I don't know, but it would be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I miss the old location if they did it, but if they did something... Then I like the new arenas better.
Yeah, I think that's also part of it is like if we're gonna get a new stadium, it should be sooner rather than later. Because TD Garden, like, it's only been the Celtics arena for the past like 30 years or something like that. Like it's relatively new.
The new TD Garden is.
Yes, the new
The
TD
old
Garden.
one was
But
on
I'm
that's
like,
why.
yeah, it's not like Fenway Park where it's like historical preservate like don't touch it kind of status to me where I'm
I
like,
mean, it's built on the old TD Garden. I'm a little biased. A humble brag I'm throwing out. I got to go to their 20th 10 years ago, so 2016. I got to go to
yeah.
the 20th anniversary TD Garden party, and they let you go on the court, and the cheerleaders would throw you passes to shoot threes, and I missed every single one of them.
Okay, that
I
was a
have
little bit of a humble brag.
brag.
I saw the brag and then I saw the
The
humble.
humble.
That was
Yep.
good.
See, that's how I do it. I think we can wrap it right there.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys
See you
after the
after
next
the Lakers
Celtics.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.